Hello, I'm Nora, and welcome back to Novels with Nora. Today, you're in for a treat. It is my February reading wrap-up. So I'm going to be going over all of the books I read this month. We had some wins and we had some losses. We did. I will be sharing some statistics with you, and then I will be talking about my March reading plans. So stick around to hear me yap about the books I read this month. So let's just get right in. I read 8 books this month and I DNF'd 1 book. The first book that I read started my month off with a bang. I read The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This book had been sitting on my shelves for so long, and I just never wanted to pick it up because I knew it was in a series, but I didn't know if any of the sequels were out. And it's a chunky book, but I finally picked it up this month because of something that we'll get to at the end here. But I finally picked it up this month, and oh my god, am I so glad that I did. First of all, I'm glad that I waited to pick it up because this came out in 2022, I believe. Yes, but the sequel, The Ashfire King, does not come out until April of this year. So glad I waited so I don't have to wait super long for the sequel because oh my god, this book is so good. So we follow Layla, who is the Midnight Merchant, and in this world, this is based on the, I can't remember what it's called, the 1000 Days and Nights. I think it's inspired by the same story that Aladdin is based on, and Aladdin is one of my favorite Disney movies. So I didn't know that when I picked it up, but it was super exciting because I started reading it and I was like, this feels familiar, and that's why. So we follow Layla, the Midnight Merchant, and she is collecting these relics, they're called, which are like objects that are imbued with jinn magic, and she then sells them, and that's how she makes her living because her tribe all got murdered when she was younger. So she's been living by herself. However, she has this like bodyguard who is a jinn, Kadir. Love him a lot. I really love their relationship. So it's them. The other perspective we get is Mazin, the prince of this kingdom, and he longs for adventure. He sneaks out of the palace and he runs into Layla, but then Layla, being the Midnight Merchant, gets calls in by the Sultan, and he's like, I have this magic lamp that my family has told stories about for centuries, and you're gonna go get it for me because you seem to be able to find all these relics. So Mazin and Layla and Kadir and another bodyguard type person set out on this journey to find this lamp, and so much goes wrong. Oh my god. It's really interesting because Mazin grew up with an older brother who is a jinn hunter. Like, that's his whole shtick. And so Layla is nervous to be going on this trip with Kadir, who is a jinn, but no one knows that. They just think that he's her bodyguard. So a lot of interesting dynamics, but it's a story about stories and love in all its forms. And it's just so amazing. And I loved it so much. I was tearing up at the end. I was on the edge of my seat. My heart was beating. I have not felt this roped into a fantasy in so long. So this was truly a treat to read, and I cannot wait for the sequel. I got an arc of it, so I will be reading it in March, and I can't wait because where we left off, gagged. So I really cannot wait to pick up the sequel. So this was a great way to start the month. After that, I actually filmed a romance weekly reading vlog, which I actually posted, so you can go and watch that and see my reviews on these books in more depth. But the first thing I read for that vlog was The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. And this is something that I was so excited about when it came out. I had been following this author before the title was announced, before the cover was revealed. I was so excited for this. And then I bought it, and it just sat on my shelves for a while because I heard some reviews that were less than stellar. And so I was worried about picking it up. And yeah, it did not live up to my expectations for it. If it wasn't clear already, I gave Stardust Thief 5 stars. I feel like that should not have been a question. Honey Witch got 3 out of 5 stars for me. It was okay. Again, you can go watch my reading vlog for the next 4 books, actually, if you want to know more about them in depth. But we follow, oh my god, what is even her name? Marigold, and she is the Honey Witch. And she's taking over for her grandmother and tending to this land, but then things are going wrong. She has this love interest, Lottie, but they can't be together because Marigold, being the Honey Witch, means that she's cursed, that no one can love her. So a whole lot going on there. But this book, I feel tried to walk a narrow edge between fantasy and romance, and it needed to either lean into one more than the other or just find a way to combine them both, because it tried walking that narrow edge between the two, and it didn't do either of them very well. The romance was kind of whatever, and then the fantasy, there was a lot of romance in the start and then a lot of fantasy in the end, if that makes sense. So it started and I was like, okay, I can get down with this romance. I like what's happening here. And then at the end, I was like, whoa, there is so much fantasy happening here that I was like, this is not the same book that I started reading. And now we're in like somewhere, like it got really like dark and like graphic at the end, or maybe graphic's not the right word, but it got like really dark and like kind of violent towards the end. And I was like, this is not what I thought I was getting myself into. So it felt like this author wanted to write a romance and she wanted to write a fantasy, but she wasn't sure how to combine the two things. So I am interested in picking up things that she writes in the future. This just did not do it for me. Also, there is a scene from this book that has really stuck with me because Lottie, the love interest, she is like covered in scars, and we learn more about that and like why in the book. But so to like cover up the scars, she started like tattooing herself, but because she was tattooing herself, she can't like reach her back or anything. And there's a scene where like she gets undressed for the first time in front of Marigold and like lays down on her stomach to like go to sleep, and Marigold's like, oh my god, your whole backside is completely blank. And she's like, yeah, I can't reach back there. And so I'm just picturing her like completely covered in tattoos in the front, just like bare in the back. And it was such like a passing scene, but it was so funny to me. So there's your little anecdote about that one. Okay, and then after that, I read some ebooks. So the first one I read was Playing for Keeps by Jennifer Dugan, and I love this book. This one got a 5 stars for me, which is honestly kind of rare because contemporary romance isn't really a genre that I read a lot of and then typically enjoy, but I love this. This is about our two main characters, June and Ivy, and June is like a star baseball player. She's a girl, and so she doesn't play softball, she plays baseball, and that's kind of like, it was a big thing, but now she's been with this team for so long that it's not a big of a deal. But there's a lot of eyes on her playing for like obvious reasons, being a girl playing baseball. And so she feels like she's really like supporting her team, and she feels a lot of like weight on her and a lot of responsibility to be, she's a pitcher, to be as good as like inhumanly possible, to get as many eyes on her team, to also help her teammates, not just herself. And then we have Ivy, who she wants to be, like her ultimate goal is to become a ref for the NFL, specifically for the Super Bowl. So she really looks up to like all of the like 3 female refs that there are, and she wants to be them. So she is working for like this sports complex, and so she's like a referee and umpire. She kind of like does whatever she needs to do because that is her goal. So she's doing it all. And what ends up happening is that as a step forward in June's career, as well as a step forward in Ivy's career, June's team gets invited to this like, I don't know sports like this, but her team gets invited to this like tournament, and Ivy gets called up to umpire for this tournament. And umpiring is like not her thing. Umping, as they call it, I learned a lot of sports terminology here, is not like her main thing, but this is like a huge step for her, and they're so excited. But June and Ivy kind of like butt heads a little, and then they end up falling for each other. However, our hinge point here is that it is like in the code of conduct for the umpires that they cannot have any like fraternization. What is the word I'm looking for? They can't like intermingle with the players, because then there's like, it goes against the code of conduct, obviously. But they end up falling in love, so they have to like fake that they don't actually like each other, because when they first met, June is like this hothead player who thinks she's kind of better than everyone else because she is, and so they don't get along, they butt heads a lot, so they have to like keep up this ruse while also we see them like falling in love and like going on dates and meeting each other's parents, and it was just so cutesy. But then there's also a lot of really great discussions about women in sports and how they have to work like twice as hard for half as much, and how June is taking like so much on herself to just try and be the best. And the two characters bond because Ivy's older brother died of cancer, and then June's mom died of cancer. So they're kind of bonding over their shared trauma, but it was just such an amazing book, and like the conversations that were had, it was just so cutesy, and I really, really loved it. So that was that one. I give that a 5 star, which big deal for me. After that, I read Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, and this was something that I had been, like it had been on my Goodreads want to read shelf for a long time, but I just never really picked it up. And you know, I did pick it up. It is something that I read. It just didn't work for me. And I think it's because, so we follow our main character Grace, and she just graduated with her PhD in astronomy. I always get that confused with astrology, but she graduated with her PhD in astronomy, and she goes out for this job interview that has been like set up for her, and it's like going to be this perfect job, and then the people there are racist, and they just say like, you don't seem like you're going to fit into our company culture. The company culture is racism. So she storms out on that interview, and so she's kind of floundering. She's like, I had this plan set up for myself, and then I walked out on the plan, and now I don't know what to do. And so she goes on this trip to Vegas with her friends and gets married drunkenly to a woman there named Yuki. And then the rest of the book is about, it's like kind of a romance, but it's more of like a coming of age of Grace like finding herself and realizing, yes, this plan was laid out, but it's okay to deviate from that plan. And I really love the conversations about like, yes, you set this plan for yourself, but you are not your plan. You are your own person, and you're allowed to make mistakes and fall in love and do crazy things because that is what life is about. And it had really great depictions of found family and friendships, like super close, like family unit friendships. And I really liked a lot of what this book said. I think because I went into it with the mindset of I wanted it to be a romance, and then it wasn't really that, and I didn't love the romantic aspects there. I think that's what put it off for me. And this one got a 3.5 out of 5 for me, which is still a good rating. It's just, I think if I were to read it again, especially after I graduate with my master's degree, I think it would hit so much harder, especially knowing that it's not solely a romance. And I think the marketing for this book did it a disservice by marketing it as a romance. But that's where we're at on that. And then after that, I read a graphic novel because I wanted some cutesy romance vibes. That's what I was trying to get because it was like a Valentine's Day vlog that I read all these for. So I read The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Dea Muniz, I believe is how you pronounce their last name. And this was exactly what I was looking for, and it was so amazing. So it's cheese themed. Everything is like a cheese pun. So we have our main character, Lady Camembert, who goes by Lord Camembert because her father dies, but he has like no other sons. And in the way the world is set up, inheritance can only pass to sons. So she goes around masquerading as Lord Camembert and moves into the city where no one knows her. But she ends up befriending Princess Brie, the princess of the kingdom, and her two friends, Lady Gorgonzola and Lady Ricotta, but she's, again, masquerading as Lord Camembert. So Brie and Camembert start to fall for each other, not knowing the true identity there. They fall for each other, like, their romance sparks on, like, grilled cheese and, like, making the perfect grilled cheese, and the art style is absolutely stunning. And then at the end, there's a scene, and first of all, the whole thing is inspired by the author and their wife, and it's adorable. I love it so much. The art style was like my favorite thing ever. Everything was just so cutesy, and like every time I would turn the page and get introduced to a new character who also had a cheese-themed name, it was just so fantastic. And a lot of it also talked about like fashion and how much they all loved fashion. Lady Gorgonzola owns like a fashion brand, but they're like real fashion, like one of them was like Gucci, but it was like Gucci's. Hilarious. Like, it had me giggling and kicking my feet. But it was just so cutesy, and I loved it so much. And great conversations about, from a graphic novel that I did not expect, about like gender identity and like finding yourself and how you can kind of play with your identity. It was really fantastic. I really loved it. Was not expecting it to be so amazing. And I know I wouldn't say, in my last wrap up, I said that I wasn't going to rate graphic novels, but this one is a 5-star. I had so much fun with it. It was so fantastic. I really loved it. And you should definitely read it because it's super quick read and it's so cutesy fun. And who doesn't love a cheese pun in their romance, right? Exactly. After that, I picked up Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. And this is something that I didn't know what the plot was before I went into it. I just had heard a lot of people talking about it. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, I don't know what I want to read next. We'll go for that. Yeah, so there's no way I can describe this book to you that will do it justice. So we have our two characters, Leah and Miri. And Leah we're never really fully told what her position is, but she goes on this like deep sea mission in this submarine to like, it's like a research mission. So it should just be like standard protocol, whatever. But it's supposed to be like a 3-week thing, and it turns into 6 months. And when she comes back to her wife, Miri's like, this is not the same girl who I sent down there. Like, this is not my Leah. And things start to happen with her. Miri is trying to cope with the fact that like she sent her wife under the sea and she came back being someone that she does not recognize. And I honestly, like, I really liked like the message the book was saying. So it was about like, it was like mourning the loss of someone who is still right in front of you, but you know it's not the same person. So like you're mourning, but they're still there. So it's like a weird feeling that you have. And then also just like loving someone so much that even as you see them like deteriorating in front of you, you still have so much love for them. And it was a great book about love and loss, but the plot just didn't really do it for me. I feel like, I don't know, I love like horror novels that take place like underwater or like in places where like the setting is the horror, and that's kind of what I wanted from this. It's not quite what I got, and I don't know, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. No fault to the book. It's a great book. Like, the book did what the book wanted to do, and I really respect it for that, honestly, because it did some freaky things. And I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5, which is, again, still a good rating. It just wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, which is, like, my own fault. But I did enjoy it. I was just like, oh, okay, so that's where we're ending? All right, okay. So that was that. I definitely am interested in picking up other things from this author, because I loved the writing style. It's just, I don't think it was quite the story for me, you know? Yeah. And then after that, I picked up All About Love by Bell Hooks, because my goal is to read at least one nonfiction a month. And I figured All About Love, Valentine's Day is this month, February is like the month of love. We went with this. I mentioned in my last wrap up that I kind of have a tense relationship with bell hooks because I've read a lot of her like articles and shorter works and didn't love them. And yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about this. I think that this is a good jumping off point if you want to know more about like the different types of love and you just want to read more about them and how you can like deepen your relationships. I think this is a good jumping off point, but it covers a lot of different types of love, very surface level. And like that's fine for what it was, but it just didn't really do it for me. And there was a lot of times where bell hooks would use like the we. She'd be like, well, we typically interact like this. And it's like, well, who is the we, bell hooks? Are you referring to women? Because not all women have relationships with men. And a lot of what she talked about here was like women loving men and having relationships with men. And obviously that's not the case for everyone. So it just felt a little like, okay, so you're like trying to be more inclusive here, but it feels like you're just conflating like straight and then queer relationships, and it doesn't work because they're very different types of relationships. And like, especially like sapphic relationships don't center men. And this centered men, and well, maybe not centered, but had a lot to do with men and talking about like how to interact with men and how to deepen your relationships with men. It wasn't really for me. And there was a lot of times where she would like give us a quote and I would love the quote, but then the way she interacted with the quote was just like, yeah, that's something that's out there. And I was like, I wish that we would engage deeper with that. So this was a 2.5 for me. I think it's fine. I don't know if I'm going to pick anything else up from bell hooks. I just think that she did so much for the field of feminism and like social commentary, like truly like cannot be overstated, like what she did for the fields. But I think that her writing's not for me. And that's okay because I did enjoy my time with it. I dog-eared a few pages because I enjoyed some of what she had to say, but I don't know, it wasn't really for me. I think I came away from this with a lot of really good thoughts that I wanted to like then look deeper into. This was like just the jumping off point. So like radical hope and like love in the face of so much hate. And I think that especially in our current, everything that we've got going on, this just like deepening your love for everything, so important. And I think that reading this sparked my love for love, but I think that would have happened without this book. I don't think this was fully necessary. And if you want to read about love, I don't know that this is really gonna, like, if this is the type of conversation you want to have, I think this book is a good jumping off point, and you might be more interested in like the references in the end, but I don't know that this necessarily is going to do for you what you want it to. Next, I read Dragon Fruit by Makia Lucier, and oh my god, this book is so fantastic. I read Year of the Reaper by this author and really loved it, and I picked this up as soon as it came out, but I just hadn't gotten around to it. And then it won a whole bunch of awards through the ALA, the American Library Association, and I was like, oh, I'm picking this up now, because I was already interested in it, but like seeing how many awards it won, I was like, oh. Also, look at this cover. This is stunning. Yeah. So in Dragon Fruit, we follow Hanalei, who was a page for the princess for this island of Tamarind, and she was best friends with that princess's son, Sam, and then her and that princess get poisoned. And the way to, like, it's like a poison, like no one knows how to fix it. They're like in this like deep sleep, nothing is waking them up. They've called in so many healers, but there's this myth about how dragon eggs, if you like eat it, it will grant you a wish, but it always comes with a price. And Hanalei's father steals one of the eggs that is meant for the princess and feeds it to Hanalei. Hanalei survives, obviously she's our main character. She puts herself in exile from this island because she doesn't want to have to go back and face everything that she left there. And so we follow her and what she's been up to. And it's not really anything good, honestly, unfortunately for her. She ends up embroiled with these dragoners, they're called, where they hunt sea dragons. But because she ate that dragon egg, she kind of has like a special connection with the sea dragons. And so she wants to more just like study them and learn more about them and not hunt them. She does not like seeing them hurt. And then on the flip side, we follow Sam, who is the prince of this island. And his mother, the princess, is still in that deep sleep because she did not get a dragon egg, so she is still ill. And he is hunting for a dragon egg, trying so hard to find one. And then him and Hanalei's paths cross again, and they're brought back into each other's lives, and they're chasing this dragon that has the eggs. And it's the story following that and what happens when they realize that maybe the price that the eggs exact is not worth paying. But it is so beautiful and lush, and the imagery of the islands is so amazing. I loved this, okay? The imagery of like the islands and just like the Pacific Islander representation here was so beautiful. This is not a type of representation that I feel like I'm super familiar with. So this was like, oh my God, I love this a lot. And it was just so beautiful. And I don't think anything I say could truly do this book justice. This book is just so beautiful. The imagery. I really loved these characters because like they have been toughened by so much, but they still have like so much emotion. Like Hanalei, she's gone through so much, but she still like shows emotion. She still cries when she's like reunited with people from her past that she has so much love for, and she cries when she sees them. She's not like some like toughened like warrior. She just expresses her emotions so well. But also these characters, they feel like kids, you know, because like this is a YA novel, so I think they're both like 18, our two main characters, and they feel like their age. Like yes, they're trusted with a lot because of what they've gone through, but they're also like their parents still, well, if they have parents, they still look out for them, and they're like, you're still like my kid and I want you to be safe, but also I know like you need to go out there and do your own thing. And it was just so wonderful to see characters that like have gone through so much and have been so hardened by life, but are still so emotional and like are showing their emotions and aren't just like so hard. I loved that a lot. And also there are a lot of really great side characters that I really loved, and then also just some animal companions that I really loved. It was just such a beautiful book. I just finished it this morning, and I want to reread it again because it was so wonderful. And I love this book. I love it so much. I see why it won all those awards, and it should have won more, honestly. I think it should have won more awards, but it is so pretty in so many ways, and it's just so amazing and fantastic and beautiful, and I love it a lot, and you should read it. The Pacific Islander representation here is just something that I've never read before and now really want to read more of because this was amazing. Just the way the islands were described and the connection that the people had with their lands and the animals that lived there and everything. It was just so beautiful. I loved it so much. I highly recommend this. This was such a fantastic book. The characters all feel just so real and perfect. Honestly, there's nothing I would change about this book. I loved it so much. Like I was tearing up at points, like even if it wasn't like super emotional, I was just like, this book is amazing. So this was like an easy 5 stars, a perfect way to end off the month. I loved this. It was truly so fantastic. Like I don't think I can say enough good things about this. So read Dragonfruit and everything else that this author has written. Truly, go for it. So now that we've talked about all the books that I've read, we need to talk about the one book that I DNF. I did not finish Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I have had 2 copies of this book on my bookshelves for a very long time, okay? I pre-ordered this copy. That's how long I've had this. When did this come out? 2022. So I've had this for 3 years. And when I finally picked it up, I said, oh no, that's not for me. No, thank you. So this follows our main character, Signa, and that's something I could not get over. I hated that her name was Signa. But when she's younger, her parents are throwing this like huge party. She's in like high society. Her parents are throwing this party and everyone at this party dies. Death then comes, because Death is like a character, and he comes for her, but he can't kill her because she cannot die. Like no matter what, she will not die. So she gets passed from like guardian to guardian, but every guardian that she's with ends up dying. So she feels like she's cursed, and like she wants to reclaim her place in high society and like go on little tea dates and like make friends and like flirt with the handsome suitors. That's all she wants. But then she has this connection with Death where she can kind of like, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but I did not like this. She ends up at this Thorn Grove Manor, and there's something going on there where someone has died, and she finds out that it was a murder, and then there's someone else who's dying in a similar way, and she's like, well, we need to stop it from happening. So there's like a murder mystery aspect there, but then she's also like communing with Death and like learning how to do things with Death. I didn't like that aspect. There was a part of me that really wanted to finish it for the murder mystery aspect, so I was genuinely intrigued by that, but I got to page like 210 by like skimming because like I don't care, and I was like, no, because this is also a series, so there's 2 more books after this, and I was like, I will not read those books, so what is the point in me finishing this, right? And also when I was looking to see how many pages it was, I kind of got a little bit of a spoiler almost for what's to come in the series. I was like, I don't care. I don't want to read that. I have no interest. So I put this down. I can see who this would be for. Like the romantic girlies are going to eat this up. That's just not me, I don't think, at least not in this way, because again, I would have preferred it to just be like if we had just taken Death out of the picture and it was just her solving these like murders. I would have enjoyed that more, but that's not what it was, so it wasn't for me. So I DNF'd that one at about 200 pages. So that was my reading month, and I would say, honestly, pretty good reading month. We had a few flops. We did, more than last month, but we also had 2 absolutely Actually, we had like 3 or 4 absolutely amazing books because I read some ebooks too. So my favorite book of the month, it's gonna be a tie. It is between Dragon Fruit and The Stardust Thief. And this is something that I know about myself, where I really like fantasies that are inspired by other cultures because they're just so rich and deep, and there's just so much there to work with. And these prove that point to me because these were so amazing. Truly my favorite reads of the month. No questions asked. And that just proves to me that I need to pick up more fantasies inspired by other cultures because this was so fantastic. I loved these both so much. So my least favorite book of the month, yeah. Luckily it was a short book, so I didn't feel like I wasted too much time with it, but I did not enjoy this. I gained nothing from it, but I didn't really lose anything from it either. So that's my reading month. Now let's go over some stats. I read 8 books this month and DNF'd 1, and 4 of the 8 books that I read, this is my reading journal, 4 of the 8 books that I read were things that I already owned. So Belladonna, which was a DNF, All About Love, Stardust Thief, Dragon Fruit, and Honey Witch. I owned all of those. Everything else that I read, so Playing for Keeps, Honey Girl, The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich, Our Wives Under the Sea, all 4 of those I read as ebooks on my Kindle because I've recently been getting more into my Kindle. And I listened to 2.5-ish audiobooks this month. So I listened to the audiobook for All About Love, and then for Dragon Fruit, but like only the second half because my hold didn't come in right away. And then Honey Girl, I listened to the audiobook for that. And I think that was it. Yeah. So that's pretty typical for me. I love an audiobook, okay? I'm an audiobook girly. I really do enjoy them. So that's that. And then for my reading challenges, I am participating in Buzzwordathon from Books and Lala. So the things I read for that this month. So the title prompt for this month was a book with a water word in the title, and that's where Our Wives Under the Sea came in. So I picked it up for that, and also because I was genuinely interested in it, and that sea, I feel like, is a water word. Yeah, that fits. And then the cover prompt was Skyline. So a book with a skyline on the cover, and I think that The Stardust Thief perfectly captures that. You know, you might not consider it that because it's kind of just like The Palace, but I feel like this counts. So that's where we're at with that challenge. And then so 1, 2, 3, 4 of the books I read were things that I already owned. Super exciting. I'm trying to read more of the things I own. And a lot of them have been on the shelf for a long time, so that's pretty exciting. Disappointing in Belladonna, obviously, but clear room on the shelves, okay? So happy about that. So now I guess we can talk about my reading plans for February. I don't know. February for March. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really have any. I think what I want to read for Buzzwordathon, but I'm gonna be doing a reading vlog for that, so you don't get to know right now. But other than that, I don't know. I'll just be picking things willy-nilly at random. I am a mood reader, so we'll have to see based on my mood, obviously. But otherwise, I think that's all I have to share with you today. If you take anything from this video, read The Stardust Thief and Dragon Fruit. Fantastic books. Ashfire King, the sequel to Stardust Thief, comes out next month. Comes out in April. You should read it. You should pick them up. You should be reading them. And I think that's all I have to share with you today. So have you read any of these books? Have you read Belladonna? That's really my question for you today. Because if you have, did you enjoy it? Are you continuing on with the series? Let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Go ahead, like and subscribe if you'd like to. And I will see you again next week. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.